Okay, we're gonna start. We're on Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. Chaf Aleph Amid Beis. We're 1, 2, 3, 4 lines from the bottom. We're 4 lines from the bottom. On B'Rosh Chadashim B'Chol Shemuel Karen Arba. So we segued from the Megillah into Kriyas HaTorah and to how many people we call up. So we said on a Monday and a Wednesday where there is no what, where you're worried about Bittul Malacha, so you called up 3 people. On Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed, right? You call up 4 people. There's Bittul Malacha, you call up. There's no Bittul Malacha, you call up 4 people. You can spend more time in shul. We said on Yom Tif we call up 5. On Yom Kippur we call up 6, and on Shabbos we call up 7. Progressively we added more, and the Gemara will discuss that on the Amid Beis. But the Gemara wants to know. Here's our problem. The problem of the night is we know 2 things. We know that about for an aliyah, you need 3 psukim. For all the balikar, for Lenny was the balkaira, you need 3 psukim. You don't learn less than 3 psukim. And when you read within a parsha that is closed with X amount of psukim, you can't leave over 3. So you have to read 3 and you can't leave over 3. So if you have an odd number that is not divisible by, let's say, for example, on Rosh Chodesh, you're going to call up 4 people, and you have 15 psukim, you got a problem, right? It doesn't work. So, for example, on Rosh Hashanah, the parsha is 15 psukim. There's 8, which is the carbon tamid, right? 8 carbon tamid. As Kabani Lachmid Lishai Reich Nechichoy V'Tishmu Lachmid Mordoy V'Matlam Zeh Shetakriv L'Hashem. There's 50. There's 8 psukim. Then you have 2 psukim by Shabbos. It'll be on a Shabbos. That segues, and then next you have 5 psukim that speak about Rosh Chodesh. 5 psukim that speak about Rosh Chodesh. So now, how are you going to go ahead and fit 15 psukim with 4 aliyahs? How does that work? If you have one, the middle parsha is 2. Right, the middle of Shabbos is 2. It's going to be problematic doing the math and figuring it out. So that's the quest of the Gemara. Interesting enough, the Gemara does not find a teretz per se on Rosh Hashanah. We do find by the Mamadais. We had in Tainus, and that by the Mamadais were. Let's wait till we get the Mamadais. When we slag, no, I'll do it now. Okay, the Mamadais are, we said that when they bring the Karban Tamid, you had the Kahanim doing the Avodah, you had the Leviim, Bishiram, Uzimram, they were playing their music and singing, and then you had Mamadais. These were the representatives of Klal Yisrael that stood by as Ashluchim when these Karbanos were brought. Because again, it's a carbon Sibur. We're paying for it, it's a carbon Sibur, so they're standing by. Now, they were broken up to 24 Mishmarim, the same as the Kahanim and Leviim. And the ones that were not on call stayed in their cities. And on Sunday, they would lane carbon. They lane from Pashas Bereshis. So on Sunday, they laned 6 people. They laned X amount. And over there, we have Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. So what we're going to do is we're going to see the question vis-a-vis Rosh Chodesh. Rav is going to say, I don't know, because I never have Mesorah on it. But I do have Mesorah on what transpired from the Mamadais. And we'll take the concept that we developed from Mamadais and apply it to Rosh Chodesh. The Machlokes Rav and Shmuel, what you do, and of course we know we're going to paskin like Rav that you skip, meaning you repeat a pasuk in order to facilitate having 3. So again, you're getting the Gemara with two premises, guys. 1, you have to read 3 psukim, and 2, you can't leave over a parsha with less than 3 psukim. Okay, so let's see what we got. So we have 4 lines up. Boy mine ula bar Rav me Rava. Parshas Rosh Chodesh Ketzad Kairin say. How do you lane it? Again, there's going to be 15. It's 8, 2, and 5, guys. Sabes bnei Yisrael matleim es kavani lachmi. Davi timnaya psuke. I mean, the carbon tamid part, guys, is 8 psukim. Now, what should you do? We need 4 people. Now, heichi na'avid. What should you do? Nikri trey. What tilsa. What are you going to do, guys? You're going to lane. In 8 psukim, you'll call up 2 people twice for 3, right? So that's 6. So tilsa psuki, pashalahu, you'll be left over with trey. What's the problem with that? Ve'ein mishayrim beparsha pachas mishloisha psukim. You can't leave over less than 3 psukim. Again, people might walk in. We're going to see this. We had this Yotze B'nichtas that people walking late, they'll be misconstrued different things. They're going to you walk in, they'll see that you're beginning a parsha with 2 psukim, and they'll say that realizing that you said one before. We're going to see all this in the Gemara. So we can't be mishaya less than. So here you got a problem. You have 8. You have in the carbon Talmud on Rish Chodesh. We're going to call up in 8 psukim. You call up 2 people. And again, what's our rule of thumb? Each person 3. That leaves 6 times. That's 3 times 2 is 6. You're left over with 2 psukim. That's a problem. You can't leave over 2 psukim. You can't leave over 2 psukim. So what can you do? Nikri. Okay. So now nikbi arba. So now what are you going to do? You'll call up 2 guys. Each one will lane 8. Each one will lane 8. What's the next parsha, guys? The next parsha is what? Is Shabbos. That's only 2 psukim. So Pashalu Shiva. What are the Shiva? Ubayam Shabbos have a tray. The 2 of Yom Shabbos. Ubarashe Chadshechem have a Chamisha. So now you have 7 psukim for 2 more aliyahs, guys. You're always going to be problem with 1. You have 7 psukim for 2 people. You need 8 psukim, right? Says the Gemara. Chamisha Hechinavid. Those psukim, the 5. What should you do? Nikri tray meha v'chad mehanach. The 2 of what you're going to lane. 2 of Shabbos, v'chad mehanach, and 1 what of Rosh Chodesh. Emaschilim v'pasha pachas mishleisha psukim. You can't go ahead and bring up and begin a parsha less than what 3 psukim. So it can't start off with 2. I can't start off with 2. So you're starting off with 2. You can't do that. Likri trey mahai. So say vitil say mehach. So learn. So what are you going to do? 2 from this and 3 from that. Pashlu trey. You're going to be left over with 2. So we have a problem. What do you do to get in 7 psukim? What do you do to get to aliyas? What exactly do you do? So that was the question that Ula Barav he asked to Rava. So said Rava, Amalai, Rava told him the following. Loi Shemati, right? I didn't hear a psak on what to do on Rosh Chodesh. However, Kiyotzeba Shemati, similar to this I did hear. Did none. B'yom HaRishoin, it says B'yom HaRishoin. Now this is speaking about the Mamadais. When the mothers they would go ahead and lane, what would they lane? B'yom HaRishoin, Bereshis. Now, and Vayihi Rakia. So they're laning the first 2 days, the first day of creation and the second day of creation. They're laning the first day of creation and the second day of creation. But now, B'toni Allah, Bereshis is B'shnayim. Bereshis, guys, is 5 psukim. Bereshis is 5 psukim, guys. Bereshis is 5 psukim, and Yehi Rakia is 3 psukim. So you have 8 psukim. Good. You have 8 psukim. So now you have 8 psukim. You call it 3 people. 8 psukim. Again, you're short 1, guys. Right? You do the math to push it. 3 people for 8 psukim. You're gonna have to repeat something. You're gonna have to repeat something. Okay. I don't know. So three people for eight psukim. What are you going to go ahead and do? How are you going to figure that out? So again, where he didn't know about Rosh Chodesh, we have a similar idea of how to deal with a similar problem, how to fit in 8 psukim, 3 people. Good. So what do? So Yehirakia is be'echad. Now, Vayihirakia v'tani Bereshis b'shnayim. The Bereshis is 2 with 2. So Bereshis, you have 5. You're going to go ahead and you're going to have 2 people. Yehirakia be'echad. And Yehirakia is going to be 1. Ravinaba. Bishlam Yehirakia be'echad. The tilsa psuke have. It's 3 psukim. So you can go ahead. And again, you're not going to call up a person less than 3. So the one that lanes Yehirakia, let's call it the Yisrael. So he has 3 psukim. But the Kahanim and Leviim, who got the first 2 aliyahs, you only had 5 psukim. Because the parsha of Bereshis, meaning the pasuk of day 1, is only 5 psukim. So El Bereshis, Bishnayim, Chamisha psuka have. Chamishim, how could you have 2 people laning 5 psukim? Again, we began to share with this. Should not be less than 3 psukim. So guys, so let's go. Let's go. Review. We have a problem. On Mamish, we have a problem that presented itself, Rabbi Rosenzweig, today on Rosh Chodesh. We're learning this today on Rosh Chodesh, right? Unbelievable. The daf came out today on Rosh Chodesh. There's no coincidence, right? So now, we have 15 psukim. We got to call up 4 people. How in the world can you fit, and how do you fit 4 people into 15 psukim? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So the Gemara wants to know, it doesn't work because one of the parshas is 2. One of the parshas are wrong. In other words, you could fit it in if you only need 12, so 4 times 3 is 12. But it doesn't work because, again, you can't begin a parsha with less than 3 psukim, and the Shabbos part, of the Rosh Chodesh laning, again, three components. The first part is Tamid, second part is Shabbos, third part is Rosh Chodesh. The Shabbos part is a problem because it's 2 psukim. So we don't know what to do. Says the Gemara, says Rava to Rabbi Barula, guess what? I never hear to Ula Barav. I didn't hear an answer to this, but we have the same problem regarding the Mamadais. What are the problems? This is a little easier. You have on the first day, they would lay day 1 and day 2. What's day 1 of Bereshit? Basically, that's 5 psukim. Okay, that's going to be 3 psukim. So here's your problem. How do you get Bishleim the Levi gets Yerihira Kia, you got 3 psukim. How do you get the Kohen Levi in 5 psukim? How do you get the Kohen Levi in 5 psukim? Because you need at least 3, right? That's the problem. We're all clear. Says the Gemara, let's go. Okay, let's go now. So Rav Amadoilig, Rav Sevitmarla, Rav Amadoilig. Rav says you're going to skip. You know what skipping means? You're going to go back to the 1 pasuk in for day number 1, and then you'll go ahead and lane the you'll lane in pasuk number 1. You'll lane a pasuk twice. You'll lane the 5 psukim. So you'll lane 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. You'll lane 3 twice, guys. 1, 2, 3 is Kayin. Then you'll get up there and do what? And Levi will go 3, 4, 5. So you'll die like you're using number 3 twice, which is exactly what we do by Rosh Chodesh, right? In other words, even though the Gemara is not going to say it, we extrapolate that halacha from here. That's exactly what we're going to do. Doilig. Ushmul ama paisik. And Shmuel says paisik, you do 2.5 and 2.5. You stop in the middle of a pasuk. Rav ama doilig, my timer, layama paisik, because he says ksavar kol psuka delay paski Moshe. Any pasuk that Moshe did not go ahead and stop, all right? Anan le paskina le. We're not going to do it, guys. I'm slayer on psukim some Moshe on the parshiyos, the psichos and the stumas from Moshe Rabbeinu. So you go ahead and take a pasuk and go ahead. We had this earlier. We had it. Okay, so it's a kasha. It's a kasha. God, it's really, he has a whole rabite on it. Yeah, he has a whole thing on it. Right, he has a whole thing on it. But by here, we do it. For Shamru, again, they strive a kayam. How do you begin Al Kain Berach, guys? By Kiddush. How do you begin Al Kain Berach Hashem? The Mishnah Berurah brings down. You say Al Kain Berach Hashem Shabbos Kadsho. Saying the same Zachar Hashem Shabbos Kadsho. You're cutting it up. By picking it up over there. Mishnah Berurah says you shouldn't do it. Mishnah Berurah says you should not begin for that reason. For this reason, you shouldn't do it. Again, I don't want to get too. But an example of an application of this would be Kiddush, not to begin Kiddush from Al Kain Berach rather than Zachar Hashem. Okay, and that's Al Kain Berach is to the guys who with the little stop space want to get there quickly, right? Right? The guys they I don't know, they slip out a little bit, take a little swim.
Well, Friday night by here, Voker.
That's also a question. That's also the same question. This is all the raid. This is all the raid. Okay, so now. So any pasuk that Moshe said it was not paskin le paskina. Ushmul amar paskina le. Shmuel says you do it. Says Rav Chananya Kara. He was a balkaira, or either he taught kiddies kriya. Sar gadol hoyali etzel Reb Chanina Hagadol was very tsar to me by Reb Chanina Hagadol. But Hitler lives like elot hinaike shel beis rabin. He only permitted me to cut psukim for kids. In other words, I'm teaching hoyel the Islam made a suyin. So in other words, you're not allowed to break up a pasuk, but to facilitate kids learning, that you could do. To facilitate a kid memorizing, the kid learning, that you're able to do. Says you know why? You have no choice. Kid's not going to remember. If the kid's not going to remember, so you have no choice. So what's the answer? Hachanami, you had to by the laning to go ahead and make sure that he knows the to make sure that he knows to get 3 psukim in loy efsher. It's not possible. So again, by the Mamodes, what are we going to do? According to Rav, what are we going to do? We're going to say, we're going to lay the third pasuk twice. 1, 2, 3 by Kohen, 3, 4, 5 by Levi. And says Shmuel, no, you're going to lay 1, 2, right? And third is going to be a half, 2.5. And then you learn a half, 3 and 4 and 5. That's what you're going to do. Ushmuel ama paisik my time ama doilig, right? L'chayra, Rav had a better what? Rav had a better eitzah. Rav had a better eitzah instead of coming. It seems to be much more of a stretch of halacha to go ahead and break up the pasuk that Moshe with the Messiah from Moshe Rabbeinu. Says the Gemara, no, I'll tell you why. Doilig, gezera mishuma nechnasin. Now let's say people, they go ahead and they come after you finish the first aliyah. They come after you finish the first aliyah, they're going to think that you read only 2 psukim. When they show up by Levi, and what are you reading? You're reading pasuk 3, correct? Pasuk Gimel. They're going to think that what? The Kohen got only 2 psukim. And mishum yoitzim, and because of the second aliyah, if they come in, they leave before the second aliyah. If they leave before the second aliyah, they'll think that what? That only 2 left. So in other words, because it's gezeira, because people coming and going, better to go ahead and lane 2.5 than 3 and 3. Better than that. That's the eitzah.
How about the eitzah of walking out during peace prayer? That's not worried about.
Huh? Again, let's say a person has to go for whatever reason. Person has to go, coming late to shul. I mean, what?
One guy does it every time, every Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos. He does that every day.
Right.
She comes in the middle.
You're not worried about one guy. You're worried about
People.
what? Again. You can't. What's your question? Your question is that you think only one person. Why do you think it's only one person? I could say there are people who come late and people will leave. Yankel makes facetiously a joke. I can show you many times people leave. You know that. And it does happen occasionally that people come late to shul, especially when you daven at 7:30 in the morning. Right? So I'm saying it happens. So again, if Chazal was worried about it, it happened. If Chazal, you never ask a guy. Okay, the bottom line is in Pshat, have a concern of dialect because why people come in and they think 2 psukim, people leave and they think 2 psukim. So again, let's go through. Let's go again. Reiterate. We had a shaila by Rosh Chodesh. Says Rava, I don't know anything about Rosh Chodesh. I do know about the Ma'amados, and I know it's a machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Rav's eitzah is to repeat a pasuk. Shmuel's eitzah is to have a pasuk. That's what I know. Now, Meisive, we're going to ask on both Rav and Shmuel. Meisive, we're going to ask Rav and Shmuel, and eventually we'll try to get back to our shaila. Let's not get lost in the sauce of the shaila about Rosh Chodesh. Meisive, Parsha shel Shisha Psukim. Again, you have a parsha you're laning on Mondays and Thursdays. You have a parsha of 6 psukim. Right? So then you're going to go ahead. You'll have 6 psukim that'll take care of 2 people. The shel chamisha psukim biyachid, and if it's 5 psukim, have 1 person lane, not 2, but 1. Kara rishain shleisha. Kara rishain shleisha. Hasheni kara shnayim. If the first person now, if kara rishain shleisha, hasheni kara shnayim parsha zu. If the first person reads 3 and there's only 2 left over, then the second person reads what? Reads 2 from that parsha that's left over and 1 from the next parsha. There's another opinion. Shloisha, you have to read 3 psukim from the next parsha. We don't begin a parsha less than 3 psukim. Now, so what happens over here? You have it's discussing reading. It's discussing reading on a tainus. It's a Gemara in tainus, discussing reading. And what does it say? That if a parsha has 6 psukim, 2 people do it. If a parsha has 5 psukim, then only 1 person does it. And let's say you take 2 people and they read that parsha. Let's say the first person reads 3 psukim, the second person should read 3 and go into the next parsha 1. You know, you're not limited. This is not like the this is not like the Mamadais, which you're only going to learn that. This is Kriyas HaTorah. So if you go into an overflow into the next parsha, it's not just a big deal, right? As we're going to see. And so when you overflow into the next parsha, how many do you have? Two. You overflow one. That's according to the Tanakama. The Yeshayimim, once you go into a parsha, you're going to lane 3. You're not going to go ahead and lane less than 3. So that's the machlokes between the Tanakama and the Yeshayimim. Okay. In other words, again, 2 psukim. How much do you go into the next parsha? Tanakama says 1. Yeshayimim says 3. That's the difference. Now, the Isa, like Rav, Lemand Amadoilig, Nidlig. Why do you have to Eitzah when you have 2 to overflow? Why don't you just go ahead and lane a pasuk from the previous parsha, like we do by the Mamadais? We're laning what from 1 and going into 2. Well, Lemand Yom Paisik, so and like Shmuel, go ahead and divide it. So why? We're asking kasha on both. Obviously, this is a third way of doing it. They're not repeating and they're not having. They're saying, oh, parsha 2, read the next parsha. Now the machlokes is how much you're laning from the next parsha, 1 or 3, but you're not skipping and you're not having. So Fred the Gemara, this is a Tanoic statement. Rabbi Shmuel the Amoraim, the Grest Amoraim, the biggest Amoraim, but Amoraim nonetheless. So in fact, why don't they have this eitzah? Why don't they have this eitzah, Vlad, of being doidlik like Rav or being mafsik like Shmuel? And for the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Shiny Hassam, it's different by reading the Torah. The F Shabahachi. What about by us, by the Mamadais and by Reish Chodesh? You're limited to 15 psukim of Reish Chodesh, and you're limited to Bereshis. Mashenkin over there, you're unlimited. You're right. Really, if I have there's a Yiddish word, no gerenitz. If I have no boundary, if I have I'm not limited. So it's great. So what do? Just keep on going. Mashen came Rosh Hashanah, Reish Chodesh, you're limited to 15 psukim, and the Mamadais are limited to on the first day to what? To Bereshis.
But on Mondays, regular learning Mondays and Thursdays, aren't you limited by time?
The calling up is you're not extra psukim is not a big deal. It's the extra aliyah. Oh, you're asking, but you're laning 2. So once you're laning, you called up the guy already. I guess just go in. Okay. Anyway, let's see Rashi over here. Look what Rashi says. I hear what you're saying. So Rashi is over here. Shiny Hasam the F Shebahachi. Likreis nis pasha zulach reha. To read this parsha afterwards. The Hachmas Nisan Kaime B'Sheni B'Chamishi, because this is speaking about Mondays and Thursdays. Shu Yachal Lichos Masha Yirtzeh. Why? She'akol Minyan Shel Yom. Guys, it's a week's. You're laning a segment of the whole week, right? You're laning parsha. You can keep on going. So therefore, that's the difference. So right now, we didn't answer our question yet. We didn't answer the question. The Gemara continues. Amar of Tamchem, Amar Shum and Levi, Halacha ki Yeshayimim. The halacha is like the Yeshayimim. Once you go ahead and enter a parsha, you can't enter with less than what? Then 1 pasuk. It has to be 3. For Amar Rebbe Tamchem, Amar Shum and Levi, a second statement of the same people. As we began to share, just like you cannot go ahead and begin a parsha with less than 3 psukim, so so too, you can't go ahead and leave over in a parsha less than 3 psukim. Says in a pshita, of course. Hashta. Now listen to this kal v'chayim. Uma aschalta the kamekel tanakama. When to enter the parsha, the tanakama was mekel. That what you can enter with 1 pasuk. Machmiri yeshayimim with 3. Guys, look. Remember, you have 2. And you need a third. You need more than another pasuk, right? So what did the Tanakama say from the next parsha? 1. What did the Yesharim say? 3. So Madach, the beginning to begin a parsha, the Tanakama was Mekel, only 1. But when it came to leaving over, he said you can't leave over 3. The Yeshomrim who are Machmir, that when you enter a parsha, you have to enter with 3, and you can't leave over what? You can't leave over what? Less than 3. So that's one more time. Uma aschalta, the beginning going into a parsha. The kamekel tanakama to enter with 1 pasuk. Machmiri yeshayimim that you need 3. Shiur leaving over a parsha. The machmir tanakama like that that you have to leave over at least 3 psukim. Like kol shekain machmiri yeshayimim. Certainly the yeshayimim are machmir that you can't leave over less than 3. Says no, I would have thought otherwise. Ma'adu tema Nichnasim shchichi, those people coming in, right, coming in late. Therefore, what? That makes sense. And therefore, we won't begin less than 2, because they may come in and less than 3, because they'll come in and see that. But Yaitzin leishchichi, as Yankel says, to leave. Oh, why? The manchi sefer Torah v'nafki. I would think to leave a sefer Torah. You know what? That's the whole reason you don't leave over 3 parshiyos, less than 3 psukim, because they'll say that what you can go ahead and you can go ahead and read less than 3. Okay, and so I would think that for people won't leave, so therefore it's no need to make this takana. Kamash Malon, there's still a need. The Tanakam Maishna Shiur Deloy Mishum Liyoitza Askuli Nami Gazrina Mishum Achnasim. Okay, in other words, so later Tanakama, guys, why can't you have to begin with 3? It's because the people go in. Yet you're not worried about the people going out. You're not worried about the people going out, that you can begin a parsha with 1, right? That's the Gemara's kasha. And for the Gemara, Manda Ayel Shili Shol. A guy who comes in late, he's going to go ahead, he's going to ask questions. So since he comes in late, he'll ask questions. We're not worried about what? About, I guess he's not worried about what? The one who leaves, Shili Shali, I guess the one who comes in, he asks. So we're not worried. If he's going to ask, we're not. Rashi says, yes, what's going on over here? He's getting 2 from one and 1 from the other. How come he only meets 2 psukim, not more? The Yom will say no, Shekara Pashal Yoina, because he read from the Pashal before. Yeah. Now, Sholchi Rabbi Braid the Rav Yosef Hilchasa Mai. What's the halacha? Rashi says by the Mamadais by Bracious. Sholchi Hilchasa. That's the halacha. The Hilchasa is like Doilig. The halacha is like Rav that you skip. If Emtsoi Dolgin and you skip what the middle pasuk, the 3 to 3, you go from mat. From 3, 4, and 5 rather than any other psukim. So now, we never got, according to the way we learned the Gemara, we never came to a Resh Chodesh, right? So the answer is l'chora, the last line. What do? We do the same thing. What do? We repeat the pasuk, right? What pasuk do we repeat? Come on, where's my Valkyrie? What? Like Koyin, the 3rd pasuk, right? As Kavani Lachmi Yeshai you repeat that. So you repeat. So you repeat that pasuk twice. So that's what we do. I found it fascinating, the fact that we're learning this Gemara on Rosh Chodesh itself. As always, it's very geshmak. Yeah.
Yesterday, the last parak ended talked about Kachatzos Halayla, also in this week's parsha.
Kachatzos Halayla. Yeah, we saw Tosfos.
Yeah.
Kachatzos Halayla. Okay. Anyway. What is our rule? Kol sheyesh by musif, right? Anything is musif, you go now 4 aliyahs. Iboyalu. What a tainis tzibor. We didn't discuss tainis. We said we discussed all the days. We got in Monday, we got in Thursday, we got all the days, but we didn't get in tainis tzibor. How many people do you call up by a tainis tzibor? Bekama. Reish Chodesh u'moyed the ikar karbon musif arba. On Reish Chodesh u'moyed there's karbon musif, so it's 4. Aval hacha the leka karbon musif loy maybe only 3. So since you have an Indian, it's different than your normal day. Maybe you will lane 4 and not 3. Tashma, let's try to bring a raya from our Mishnah from Rosh Chodeshim b'Bechol Shel Moed Kairin Arba. So we make, when do you lane 4? Only on Rosh Chodesh and Chol Shel Moed. Let's make the following inference: Habit Tainis Tzibor Gimel, but Tainis Tzibor would only be 3. Tainis Tzibor would only be 3. Ema Reisha. Let's look at the Reisha of the Mishnah. B'Sheni b'Chamishi b'Shabbos b'Mincha Kairin Gimel. Mashma Tainis Tzibor Abba. So you want to infer both ways. When it discussed the 3, it just said Sheni v'Shlishi. When it discussed the 4, it just said what? Chol Hamoed and Rosh Chodesh. The answer is that the Gemara always does this throughout Shas. If it brings a Mishnah and it brings a diak from one inference from one and one inference from the other, and the contradictory inferences, then it says they'll always conclude with the words to answer a shaila. You can't use our Mishnah. But again, the best way to answer a shaila will be from a Mishnah. It's the best source. It's the most powerful source. But we failed because the inference both the shtipnished. Toshma, let's try again. Now we don't have a Tanoic source, guys. We don't have a time. We don't go to a brisa. We failed in the Mishnah. We don't go to a brisa, so we're going to Amaroim. It makes a lot of sense now, right? But what's the Maisa we're going to? We're going to a Maisa. Now, when you have a statement of Amoraim, it's one thing. When you have acting upon that statement, it's more powerful. So it's a Maisa Rav. It's just these are like Kloli Halimud. When the Gemara brings in a Maisa to substantiate, you see they're acting upon what? They're acting upon their psak. So now what happened over here? Tashma. The Rav Ikla Bavel. Rav showed up in Bavel with Tainus Tzibur. Now, a few things. Kom Kari B'Sifra. He was the Bal Kaira. Pasach Baruch. He began with the bracha, and Chasim V'loy Baruch. He finished it and he didn't make the bracha. So let's go back in time. In the old days, what did they do? The first person before make a bracha, and the last person make a bracha. But because of the nechnasim v'yotzim, they stopped. That's where we introduced this. A person walks in late and they don't hear a bichas at Torah, they're going to say, "Oh, you have to make a bracha in the Torah." A person leaves early, doesn't hear a bracha, so therefore what? They're going to say, "You have to make a bracha in the Torah." So to go ahead and avoid that, you always make a bracha before and afterwards. So the people coming late hear a bracha, the people leaving here have a bracha. But l'chayra, like Rav, it was before the takana was made of nechnasim v'yotzim. It was before this takana. So Rav was pashtus. He made the bracha. He must have been the Kohen, or else why is he making the bracha? Right? So he must have got Kohen. He made the bracha, but he didn't make the first bracha. So obviously, what? He didn't get the last aliyah. He got the first aliyah and not the last aliyah. And the question is, how many aliyahs were there? That's a shaila. It's a tainus tzibur. L'chayra Rav got kahanim. He got Kohen, right? So now let's see how this plays out. So Rav comes to Bavel. He goes ahead. He lanes. It's a tainus tzibur. He makes the bracha before he makes the bracha asher bacha banu mikol amim, and he doesn't make the bracha asher nasan lanu. Good. Now, second thing, what else did Rav do? That has no bearing on our sugya, but it is what it is. It's part of the Maisa. So Nafal Kuli Alma an Payu, they all fell down for Tachnun. They all went down for Tachnun. For Rav Nafal Ape, and Rav did not fall on his face. Michti, Rav Bi Yisrael Kara. Rav was called up Bi Yisrael because Rav wasn't a Kohen. So my time of Chosam V'lei Birach, Lab Mishum the boy lemikri achrina basrei. In other words, l'chayra Rav wasn't a kohen. He was called up for Yisrael, right? We're going to ask a question. Obviously, why is he making bracha? And you know why he didn't make the last bracha? Because there must be somebody after him. So you have a raya from the Maisa that 4 people are called up on a tainus tzibur because Rav didn't make the last bracha. Because if he was the last person, he would have made the last bracha. So obviously, he must not be the last person. There must be another person afterwards. That's what the Gemara's raya is. It says, no. Well, Rav b'kahani kar. Rav was called up as the kohen. Now, Rav was not a kohen, but when you're the god lador, you get precedence, right? The Rav Huna kari b'kahani. Rav Huna was called up in the spot of a kohen, and he was not a kohen. So Bishleim Rav Huna kari b'kahana. Dafilu Rav Ami Rav Asi. The Kahani Chashivi there the Yisrael Mikav Kaifel Rav Huna. They made themselves totally subservient to Rav Huna, despite the fact that Rav and Rasi are both Kahanim. El Rav Ha'ikah Shmuel. Rav is in Bavel, and there was Shmuel in Bavel, the Kahanav, and Shmuel was a Kohen. The Daber Le Shmuel B'Dibra Leha. So L'chayra, it can't be that Rav got the Kohen. So how can you tell me Rav got the Kohen? Right? If Shmuel was, says the Gemara, Shmuel nami makef havi kaifle Rav. Shmuel was subservient to Rav. Rav hu the avela covered, and Rav gave him covered. V'chi avid lei b'fun of, but shloi b'fun of le'avid lei. Now Rav was in Surah and Shmuel was in Pumbedisa. So when did he go ahead and show him covered to let him? The Gemara says in that Shabbos Daf Kufches, he let him go through the door first. He showed him covered. That was b'fun of. He showed him covered, but shloi b'fun of. So now it's shaloi b'fanav. So Rav could take kahanim. So Rav took kohen. You have no raya to the question. You have no raya. Again, if Rav is taking kohen, it can zayin what? There's only 2 people afterwards, right? Only 3. Okay. The question is okay. So now, and that would explain why what he made the bracha first and then make the bracha afterwards. That would explain that.
Is this the Maisa when he cursed him?
Yes. Hachanayim mistaber the Rav b'kahani kara. Disal kedaitach b'Yisrael kara. My time of baruch, my time of baruch. It's a very raya that what it must be what that he was a kohen. Because if you're going to say it's Israel, why would he be making the bracha in the Israel slot? Guys, who made the bracha? The kohen. Who made the last bracha? The Yisrael. If Rav got the Yisrael slot, why did he be making the bracha before Asher Bracha Banu? Right? So it must be that it makes sense. He got the Kohen slot. And therefore he made the bracha Asher Bracha Banu. And you have no raya because it could be only two people following him afterwards. Again, the only possible raya you can bring from here is Rav is the Yisrael, and he was the last Ali. There was another Ali after him. But if he's not the Yisrael, he's the Kahanim, then therefore there's no raya whatsoever. Says the Gemara, no, my time of Berich Lach Takana. Says the Gemara, when he made the bracha, Ken Zayin, he was in the Yisrael slot. Guys, he was in the Yisrael slot. And really, you could bring a raya. So what's the reason he made a bracha? If at the Kani Hachi, it's the reason he's in the Yisrael slot, and he made a bracha before, because it's after the takana that everyone makes the bracha before. He should make the bracha afterwards. So, guys, you're playing two sides of a fence. What are you telling me? You're telling me that Rav must be the kohen because he made a bracha before. Good, and therefore you have no raya. How many followed afterwards? Says the Gemara, no, you have no raya. Rav was in the Yisrael slot. Fred the Gemara, how can you say Rav was in the Yisrael slot? It's after he's making a bracha before. Says the Gemara, it's after the takana. So it's after the takana. Not only should he be making a bracha before, he should be making a bracha afterwards. And apparently, it must be that l'chayr is after the takana, that it must be someone to follow, and you do have a raya that there's someone after him. Shiny heicha the Yosef Rav. It's different in the place where Rav is sitting. The Mayel Aile Mifikle Nafik. People came in, but they didn't go out. They came in late, but they didn't go out. Okay, it seems like this. It seems to be that this thing of the whole reason for making the takana is Yotze V'nichnas. People will come and go. What happens if people come in, but they don't go? So therefore, there's no reason to make the nach bracha. The reason for the nach bracha is people are going to say, look, there's no bracha. So if they come in late, you have to make a bracha before. But if they come in, if they don't leave, there's no way to make them afterwards. So in other words, it's kind of a hybrid. We're playing with it. Even though Pashas Takana was you had to do both, it seems not. Anyway, you have no raya. The bottom line is you have no raya from there. Okay, Tashma, let's try again to be Poishet Ashayla. What's Ashayla? Well, how many aliyahs on Tanis Tzibur? Anything that has bittul malacha la'am, anything that people they can go to work. That in other words, if you're going to keep them longer, they won't be able to go to work. You're going Tanis Tzibur with Tisha B'av, Korean Gimel. You can't get more open than that, guys. You just approach to the Shiloh. What did you say? 3 on a Tanis Tzibur. On a Tanis Tzibur, what? You're going to go ahead and have 3 people. That's what it says. Listen what it says afterwards. But a day that there's no bittul malach because people don't work, la'am, kigoin roshei chadashim, v'cholesh shel moed, dalid. Shmamino, you have a good raya. Okay, now it says something over here that's a bit controversial. It says you don't work on Rosh Chodesh. And that's why you're learning 4, because there's no problem. So why aren't you learning on Rosh Chodesh? So you look at Rashi. Rashi says, V'tisha b'av, nami mutter b'malacha, elamachu shenagu. It's mutter to do work on Tisha b'av in a place where you know, right? But Rosh Chodesh, ain't by bittul malacha kol kach. You know why? She'ein hanoshim oises malacha behen. Women do not work on Rosh Chodesh. V'achanami aminu mesechta Rosh Hashanah. Gavi masuas mishum bittul malacha la'am shnei yomim v'shamat mi pi Mori Azaken zal shenitna lehem mitzvah zu b'shvil shaloi pirku nizmeim be'egel. What happened? That they came. It's a pirku d'Rebeleza, right? They came and they wanted the women to give them their jewelry, and they said they're not going to. And look at the parentheses over here. It's a parak in Shabbos, the Brisa, the Eliezer, Shomu Hanashim, V'lei Ratzu Litein Nizmeihem Libaleim, El Amru Lehem, Atem Roitzim Lasis Pesel Masecha She'im B'Koyach Lahatzel. You want to make a pesel umaseach. You want to make an idol that does not have ability to save. It's not going to work Beautiful pasuk. The pasuk says, Hamaspia b'toyev eidecha tischarish kneshen urayach. Who satisfies your mouth with goodness, your youth will be renewed. Lasad lavai, that the women are just like an eagle renews its wings, the women will get back their youth. And the result of what? Of not giving in to the eagle, by not giving in. And as a result, they were given Reish Chodesh. What's the hezbah? Beautiful hezbah. Reish Chodesh, it renews itself. And Lasad lavai, women will get this renewal, this constant renewal of women being renewed themselves. They're constantly renewing themselves. They're constantly renewing. I heard the say that's why women have a vested baininess for Ilchas Nidus 30 days, because every 30 days is a new nayas chachas. Every 30 days is a nayas chachas. So the question now, how much time we have? The question is that, so good, women don't work, but we work. But women don't work, we work. So you're being a rye like this. There's a Turi Evan, he says like this, he quotes a Yerushalmi. This is a beautiful pshat. He says like this: it used to be that no one would work. It used to be that no one would work. Why? Because if there's on Daf Nun, the Tosfos in Daf Nun in Masechet Pesachim, why didn't they work on Erev Pesach from Chatzos on? Because the day that you bring a carbon, you didn't work. The day that you didn't bring a carbon, you didn't work. If you brought a carbon day, you didn't work that day, right? The Mela, they used to bring karbanis from the shkalim. They used to bring the shkalim. So right? So l'chayra on Reish Chodesh they didn't work. Why? Even the men didn't work because they bring in karbanis. So why on every day they brought the carbon tamid? So because it says v'ascha deganecha deganecha v'tirei shvitzarecha. You should gather in your stuff. So we had to work those days every day. So Masha'en came, but Bisman the Beis Hamikdash was batal. We don't bring the carbon anymore, so there's no reason to. So that's the hezbollah over here. Really, initially, it was a yontif for all. It was a yontif for everybody. Even Reish Chodesh was a yontif for everybody. It's not pshat woman got Reish Chodesh as a yontif. It was initially a yontif for all. Woman retained it after the churban bias, and after we no longer have the shkolim, and we no longer have the reason not to work because we're not being karbanis. We go to work. But woman who was not chayta by the chayta ego, they went ahead. Yes, I did send it out. I sent out the Turi Evan. It's on your. They lost it. They never lost it. So it's a beautiful hezbollah, guys. It's a beautiful hezbollah. It's not pshat that they got a reward. No, none of us worked. What's the raya? Beautiful raya. My bar mitzvah haftarah. There's a suda. There's a Sudas Reish Chodesh, right? And the Sudas Reish Chodesh, who's sitting there? Shaul and Yonason and David's supposed to be there. Why? Because they didn't work that day. Because B'Yom HaMaseh, the day before, they did work. B'Yom HaMaseh, they did work the day before. But Reish Chodesh, they didn't work. So it's very geschmack as anything. It comes together beautifully. BMS on Reish Chodesh was a yontif. And no one worked. Why? Says the Yerushalmi beautifully, because you had to bring a carbon. Since you brought a carbon, the day you brought a carbon, you didn't work. You asked why the carbon tub is what every day you do work, because the Torah says to work, but after the Genecha, you have to work sometimes. So therefore, now, when they no longer had that heter, because they no longer bring a carbon, so we got to work. But women, as a result of the chsar for the ego not being part of it and not giving over the jewelry, they retain that. So it's beautiful, beautiful hezbollah of the Gemara over here. If you want to see it, I did post it I posted. Okay, right there. Ravashi. So now we replaced the Shaila on the Tainus Tzibur, only 3. Ravashi v'nan lo tanan hachi. Right, we did not learn this way. Ze klal. We have a rule in our Mishnah. Now, anytime you have a rule, it comes to include something. Kol yom sheyesh by musaf ve'ena yantiv. Any day that has a korban musaf, but it's not a yantif. Koirin arba, right? That's what is that? That's Chol Hamoed and Rosh Chodesh. Lasuye mai, la lasuye tainus tziba. Does not the rule come to include a tainus tziba, guys, that you're laying for? No, v'tishabav, or Ravashi mastisa money. If that's the case, the town of the Mishnah, of the following Mishnah, is Leitan Akam, later of Yosi, the Tanya, Chaliyos. If Tisha falls out, B'Sheni B'Chamishi, on a Monday or a Thursday, Koirin Gimel, you call what? 3 people, Umafter Echad. v'shlishi u'revi kairin echad u'mafter echad. Right. So if it falls out on a Thursday, right, on Monday or Thursday, you call what 3 u'mafter echad b'shlishi. No, mafter echad stop. B'shlishi revi on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday, kaira echad u'mafter echad. The bottom line is not 4. Velakasha zaklal. So in other words, guys, look at me. We have a Fursha statement that on Tanis Tiba 3 says Rabbi Ashi from a diak and a Mishnah when it says zaklal, the klal must mean that 4 by Tanis Tiba's 4. Fred the Gemara, if that's the case, what does Rav Ashi do with the following? He says when Tisha B'Av falls out only the most you can learn is 3, either 1 or 3, but not 4. So that Fred the Gemara. So what do you do with the rule? In other words, what do we do to shtim everything? How do we get Rav Ashi's 4, his raya from the Zeh Klal, to go ahead and match up with the 3 over here? L'chorah, Rav Ashi has a very good point. And the answer is that rule that you said is not coming to include a Tainus Tzibur. It's not speaking about Tainus Tzibur at all, says the Gemara. So what do you do with Rav Ashi's rule? Says the Gemara, right? It comes to include Rosh Chodesh and Moed. Fred the Gemara, you don't need a rule to include them. In other words, you don't need the rule of Musaf to include Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed. It says it openly. It says the Gemara Simana ba'alma yav. It's giving a siman. Take this rule, guys. Outside. Usually, a rule comes to include something that's not listed. This rule is giving us a common denominator. It's giving us a common denominator. In other words, take this to the bank. If it has this is the rule. Here's a rule that you could take to the bank and figure out how many aliyahs you're going to call up, but not to go ahead and include something that hasn't been stated. It only means, right? So this is what's the rule over here? Any day that has musif is going to have what? 4. And what's that? Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed. Now let's extend that rule. El noked hay kol biyatcha. Kol the tafile, anything that's more than its fellow. Milsa mechavre tafile. Gavri yisera. Go ahead and you're going to add another person. Hilgach. Rosh Chodesh Hamoed dika karbon musif kaira abar. Beyontif the asa b'siyas malacha chamisha. Biyom kippa the einish karis that you're going to get karis for doing work. Shisha, Shabbos dik is a skila. You have a skila is shiva. You're going to get 7. Okay, now let's revisit. I just have to go on. Let's revisit now. Rav, guys, we brought Rav in for the Maisa, the fact that he got an aliyah, and we try to ascertain which aliyah he got and try to figure out. Well, if he got the last aliyah and he didn't make a bracha, there must be afterwards another one. And we said no raya. So now let's go back and analyze the other things that Rav did there. It says Rav didn't fall on his face. Okay, so the gufa. Now we're going to go ahead. Itself, we're going to analyze it in itself. We previously brought it in for a question. Now it's going to be self-analyzation. Gufa. Rav ikul lebavel. Rav showed up in Bavel, but Tainus Tzibur. Come kari b'sifri. Ref in the Sefer Torah. Pasach barach chasam leibirach. He made a bracha. Asher b'chabanu. He didn't make a bracha. Asher nasan. Nafel kuliyalma and pai. Everyone fell down for tachnun. On they went their left hand. So Rav nafel alpe and Rav did not. My time at the Rav nafel alpe says ritz b'shel avanim haisa. Rav, there was a floor of stone. V'tanya ve'evin mashkes leititnu ba'artzachem, and a stone of a covering do not put in your land. V'shtachvas aleha. Allah yat mishtachve ba'artzachem. Alat mishtachve alavanim shel beis hamikdash. Guys, I used to think, when I was a kid, on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, when you bowed down, you took a piece of something and put it down, that you should get your pants dirty. That's what I thought. The reason you're putting it down, you should get your pants dirty. No one told me otherwise. The reason you do it is because of Evin Mashkes. A person's not supposed to bow down to a floor covering of stone. So that's why we put something down in between. That's simply, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was a kid, but no one did. I guess some of you also might like hearing it now. That's the reason you do it. Now, that's in the Beis HaMikdash, but Rav didn't bow down, guys, not why? Because the floor was what? A stone floor. And it's the din of Evin Mashkes. It's the din of Evin Mashkes, the stone covering. So the problem is why did everyone else went down? Says the Gemara, Kiduula, Dama Ula, Lo Yasra Torah Ala Ritz B'Shal Avanim B'Vad. Yehachi, my area Rav, Afilu Kulinami, right? Why did not everyone? Everyone else bowed down. They know the halacha. So why did they bow down? Says the Gemara, Kame de Rav Havoi. The stone was only in front of Rav. They had an earthenware floor, so they can bow down. They can do a prostration. So why does Rav, instead of Rav not bowing down because he was opposite a stone, why didn't he go to them and bow down there? Says Gemara, again, if Rav is going to go, everyone will have to stand up. You don't want to be much after tzibur. Rav did not do a regular falling on his arm. Rav did a total body stretching out his hands and feet. Right. Another Torah only acid, but Evan Amashkis is bowing down with what? With your hands and feet. So good. So again, so you're telling me that it's Evan Maskis, but it's not a problem if you just fall down on your hand. So when you just fall down on his hand, why don't you just not do Pishidayim? Do this one time. Don't do Pishidayim Milayim. Says Gemara, Rav's not going to be Mishana from his minhag. By saying Adam Choshev shiny, Adam Choshev is different. He's not supposed to go ahead and bow down to Rabbim. Places says Biyach that he could. Kid Rabbi Allah said, Adam Choshev Rishai Lipol Apanov Elim Kain Neak Yeshua Binun. And Adam Choshev can't fall down on his hand, and all he's going to be sure that he's going to go ahead and be answered like Yeshua Binun. Kid Chsiv Vayom Hashem Yeshua Kum Lechid. Kodesh Baruch says, Shua, get up. Your tefillah has been answered. There's a Gemara, I think, above Mitzvah. It says that he had to stop Reb Lezman hooking us before he got his attention to Tachlan, because he wouldn't have done Tachlan, he would have been answered. I didn't look up the Gemara. Tan Rabbanan, let's finish to the two dots. Tan Rabbanan, Kida alapayim. Kida is some way of putting your fingers on the ground and doing some type of gymnastic, which is very dangerous. And you put your face down. Shnemar, it says Vatika basheva apayim. All right. Kriya is alberkaim, is on your knees. V'chenu aimer mechroya alberkov, on your knees. Ishtachava, so we're describing three things: Kida, Kriya, and Ishtachavia. Ishtachavia is upishu dai maglayim, which describes in Rav that stretching out your hands and your feet. Shnemar havanov ani ve'imcha v'achecha l'shachazcha arza. Levi achve Kida kame the Rebbe. Levi was illustrating Kida in front of Rebbe Vitla, and he became crippled. Fred Gemara v'haka garmalei. Gemara in Tainus we had v'amar abalos loim ayita chadam dvarim klapi ma'ila. Person should not go ahead and speak in insolent way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Adam galo hatiach dvarim klapi ma'ila. Person spoke in an insolent way to HaKadosh Baruch Hu concerning rain, ve'itla, and what? And he became hinkadik, umadu Levi. So how can you tell me what? It was the fact that he illustrated Kida. You have another reason, that fact that what? That he spoke insolently to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, no, hava hagarma. They both were caused. Garmalei. Amrav Kiva Rav and Chazin Lulabaya V'Rava, two Adam Chashuvim, the Matzli at Sluye, they went, Rashi says, al Tzedei, they leaned to their side, V'Lanafel al Pnei Mamish, the Pishnei Chashav Roshei Liv Apanav. And the Chashav shouldn't fall on his face, but nonetheless, they did something leaning to the side. Okay, thank you.
People say you're not